Happy Friday, everybody. And thanks again for joining another live event. It's my third live event. I'm really excited. I have Cory Fisk here. And good morning for those of you that are on the West Coast, and good afternoon for those of us on the East Coast. Cory is joining us from California this morning.
Mhm.
So, Cory, good morning for you.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
being on the show. Cory and I met here on LinkedIn, I would say about 2 months ago, I believe it was.
Yes.
And we've been talking since then. Just a short introduction about Cory. Cory has been in the construction industry her entire life. Her father was an owner operator, and while he was owner operator, she was working her summers working as a laborer with him. After graduating from college, she worked as a construction manager for over 12 years. She then became a college professor, where she's been for the last 18 years. She's passionate about teaching students and now runs a business called Construction Management Online, as you can see on her screen. She continues to work directly with students, helping them identify their skills and strengths, and also with transitioning from the field to office and vice versa. So again, thank you, Cory, for being a part of this event, and thank you for all of you that are joining us, or maybe watched previously live in the next couple of hours. So, Cory, I want to get into the first question, right? What can construction professionals do with their own career that involves their own accountability measures that will make them more irreplaceable, right? So employee retainage is a major issue right now, and we talk about it all the time. It's definitely a topic that I've become passionate over. I see just how bad managers can really ruin someone's day and destroy their careers, really, right? So a lot of managers are not taught to be managers, and they become very selfish people, and they don't realize that a lot of their decisions can really affect someone's career on top of their own career, right? So people also need to stop blaming other people as well, and really need to hold themselves accountable. So, with your background and teaching and talking with so many students, what are some measures and what are some ways that students can hold themselves accountable as well as they pursue their new careers in construction?
Well, and in the construction industry, first, thank you so much for having me today. Just again, the power of LinkedIn and us being able to
Yeah.
meet and collaborate on different topics has been amazing. So I appreciate that. Just with the understanding that in construction, it is hard because if you take responsibility for something that went wrong, then you are going to be the scapegoat that goes down with the ship, right? So it is not that people don't have the morality to go ahead and take accountability, but you will definitely see that those in the site or on the field with the hands-on work, that they're more willing or able to step up and take responsibility for something that they've done. But the having accountability is definitely huge in that. But I just want to go back for a second to what you were talking about the disconnect between managers and the field. And those managers, for a lot of times, they have really kind of supervented the field and gone right into a management position before having an opportunity to really understand what it takes to be out in the field and how hard that work is. So that, and our current workforce having a lack of empathy, and then going into having a degree and really being pre-promoted too soon into a position that you were not mature enough ready to take on. So when you're working on things, whether it is being a project manager, construction manager, being out in the field with those people that are working with their hands and putting in the hard time outside in the sun, in the cold, understanding that and appreciating that, asking questions like respectfully, like when you go to somebody and you say, why are you doing that? It's not in their mind, their perspective, they think you're gathering information for a change order. So instead of asking them that way, you could be like, wow, that's really great how you were able to make that happen. How did you do that? That's just give them some pretense to why you're asking the questions while you're learning in the field. But personal development on all levels is going to be important, even for that person that's in the field, to be able to take advantage of seminars that are with unions or any kind of training programs that are being offered by their company. Not only does it show that you are an excited employee to be with that company, but it just gains and upscales your skill for you to be able to keep improving where it is that you're at. So it's a lot of, really, it all comes down to what we do for ourselves, not going into anything with any kind of victimhood. Oh, I'm in construction because I'm not smart enough. I'm in construction because I couldn't get into college or I didn't have enough money to go to college. No, it's like you're in construction. So now what are you going to do? Okay, I'm using construction as a stepping stone. If it's not meant for you, you still will have tremendous skill sets that you will be able to use at home in the backyard, or be able to fall back on it if for some reason you get laid off and decide to go a different discipline.
Yeah, I don't know why people would think that about construction anyways, because construction is all about problem solving, right? Every single day you're solving problems, whether you're a tradesman, you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're going to people's houses because you're solving a problem, right? You're solving their pain point, or you're a construction manager, or you're a GC, right? You're on the field and you're solving major problems. These are problems that are costing thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars if you don't solve them, right? So
But
an engine, yep, go ahead.
Well, when you're in the construction industry, you can see the different layers and levels of construction. But when you're outside the construction industry, you only see construction, and it is only recognized as a low entry position that doesn't take a lot of skill to handle a shovel. Now, I worked as a laborer for many summers, and if you don't know how to handle a shovel, it's going to be a painful summer. So even handling a shovel can really add to your skill sets when you're moving forward with something. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's not a more exciting industry to be in, not only because you're problem solving and you're fixing other people's issues and you're helping other people, you're providing service, and it makes you feel good. You get to stand back and actually see the reward in such a way that driving by in your car, you can point out to your kids, yeah, I was part of that. And so there's so many different reasons to be excited about the construction industry.
No, there is, and my background is a lot of highways and bridges and site work, and there's a bridge that I was a super on that's probably about 10 minutes from my house, and I pass under it all the time, probably 5-6 times a week, and I still tell my kids, Daddy was a part of that bridge. Daddy, I know, Dad, I know. How many times are you gonna tell us, So it's a good feeling, and then every once in a while I'll get off the exit and I'll drive on the top to see how the top of the deck is looking, and the sidewalks with all the salt and everything over here in the Northeast. So it's cool to be a part of that, and then just driving into the city, there's just so many. I was on a lot of multi-bridge projects as well, so there's just so many bridges that I was a part of a major team. So it's certainly an accomplishment. I was talking to somebody who used to be an electrician, and now he owns restaurants. And he says, I think I was a lot happier when I was an electrician. It's just, the business starts to self-run itself, and the restaurant business starts to self-run itself. He says, but when I was an electrician, although I was working for somebody, every day was a new challenge. I went home every single day saying, okay, I accomplished this, and that, So there is a lot of pride that comes with being in this business as well.
So I just want to hit on that just for a little bit, because that is a distinction that early in my career that I recognized in construction, is that when you're a project manager, you can expect to be working pretty much 24/7. You have problems rolling in your head the whole time. But when I was on the job site, I got there at 6:30 and I left at 3:30. I went home, I rode my horses. I didn't have to think about anything. All I had to do is show up at work the next morning. So there's a huge advantage to being able to work out in the site, in the field, and not have to think about the problems of the management side of things. But we also, especially after the pandemic, have a higher awareness of depression and suicide that is happening in the construction industry. And so it makes it sound like it's a counter that, well, construction guys are the happier, girls and gals are the happiest in construction because they're doing something they love, they're working, they're physically getting this this activity out of them in order to be able to help them be happier. But the problem is again, it's a man-dominated field, and men have always had a tendency to hold things in and not really be able to communicate, release, or talk about certain things. And it is just something that has built, but the human has in the past 5 to 10 years has changed where the resilience isn't as high. The ability to be able to withstand certain trauma or things isn't the same as it used to be with our gentlemen who came home from war and really just had to go through some really hard times through the depression and everything else in order to be able to survive. So our ability to survive has been reduced, which increases some of that depression that has settled into the construction industry. So that's something that we need to be able to work on. But for the most part, those people that are really in construction, you're in it because you love it. And that's one of the things that goes back to your question on retention, because everybody says you need to pay everybody more money. Hey, we would all like more money. And right now our dollar's not going very far. No. But part of the problem is our employers. Our employers are not being educated in a way that they're really accepting what it is they're asking for. So they need people in the seats. They really don't care who it is. They don't care how skilled they are. So they have somebody come into that construction project, and then that person doesn't like their job because they were misled in order to be put into that position. So they leave early. Well, that company loses money in time used to train that person, to market for that person, to sign that person up. And so that retention leaves, or that employee leaves. And so really being honest about, hey, look, there might be some hard stuff that you're going to have to do in the beginning, but you're going to earn your way. And then we're going to promote you into the position that you're looking for. And here's what you need to do with that. Instead of really just being honest that we need skilled workers, we need hands, we need people in the trench. And you're not going to get to go in and be a project manager and tell people what to do on the 10th day of your hire.
Well, I think, and I've been talking about this a lot on LinkedIn, is I think the onboarding process, that's probably the only process that really needs to be micromanaged, right? You really need to understand who you're hiring. I heard a story, just to give you a quick story. I heard a story where this contractor was looking for estimators for a long time, right? And they had their own HR department, and their HR department was sending him resumes of people who worked at a restaurant with no construction experience. And they were like, listen, they're going to be great estimators. They worked as waiters and waitresses. They know numbers. Like, are you serious? Is this really happening? Like, it's crazy. My jaw dropped when I heard this story, and it's crazy. So I mean, listen, I talk to a lot of HR people as well, right? They call me all the time, and a lot of them just don't really understand the full details of what a project manager does. Like for me, I've been a part of a $40 million a year company, a $100 million a year company, a $400 million a year company, and a $1 billion a year company, right? Those are the companies that I worked for. And let me tell you something, a project manager for each and every one of those size companies is a completely different scope, different scope. One is doing more micromanages and wearing multiple hats. The other one is just really delegating, but it's a completely different scope, and you really got to have that boots on the ground understanding to really know what the role entails and the personality that's required, the mindset, right? Because I feel I'm a great estimator, but I can't sit at a desk all day long because I start to lose my mind. After 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I start going crazy. I have to take long walks, and that's stuff that companies should kind of incorporate in the day-to-day layout of their people as well.
Yeah, but what they've done is they've put in a requirement for a degree to go into that upper management position. And so that degree is supposed to have the same value as experience out in the field. But what happens is you end up promoting somebody out of college into an estimating position with a degree who has no experience. We know how important it is to have experience when we're doing means and methods or, tactical strategy in how you're going to build that project. And the superintendent is very valuable in that role as a superintendent. So the company has no motivation to train them to go into an estimating position and offer that person. They may not want to. They may love being a superintendent, but at some moment he may want to go into an upper level management position, and the transition between site and office is completely different. And so to be able to know and understand the different skills and tools that you're going to need is an important piece. And if they would just build their own pipeline by training the person behind them, right? In construction, we hold all of our knowledge very close to our chest, because if we let the next guy know how we secretly do this, then we might be out of a job, and that young kid's going to come in and take it. So we have 5 generations working now in the construction industry. And so now not only do we have different ages that are being impacted, but we have different languages, different cultures, different races, different gender, I don't want to call it issues, but things that are going on out on the job site that make it really confusing for anybody to know how to talk to somebody without offending them. And
big topic.
So that communication becomes a really big thing. And when you're transitioning from the field into the office, that communication piece is huge. You can't throw your hard hat down anymore and scream and yell at somebody and intimidate them into doing their work. You have to be able to negotiate, to be able to talk, to be able to come up with all of the different reasons and facts of why you need it done a certain way. And you're talking to a diverse population. You might be talking to a board member of the person of the board, or excuse me, of the bank that lent the money to the project. And then you might go out and talk to the foreman for the laborers that are on site. So your language is also going to change as your communication changes.
Yeah, I mean, this all, again, it all comes down to communication, right? So, the way I view communication is one way to better communicate is establishing those systems and processes for typical operations that have to happen every single day. It just eliminates any of this discomfort of offending somebody or talking to somebody a certain way. I mean, I remember when I started 20 years ago, I remember sitting at the lunch table saying, this business is great. This is the only business you could actually tell somebody to go F themselves and actually still have a job the next day, but times have changed.
Get rewarded for it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You were rewarded for it. You got a bonus,
Yeah.
but times have changed for sure. And being able, so it's crazy because you need to better communicate verbally, but also you need to better communicate by establishing that system and process that eliminates a lot of what you just talked about, where you're offending people or everyone loves to blame their managers for everything. Well, they're not communicating better with me. Well, what are you doing so you can communicate better with your manager as well? I mean, if the manager is an introvert and doesn't want to deal with anybody, well, they shouldn't have been in that place to begin with, right? Yeah. But what are you doing, right? So for me, one thing that I was doing very early on was, instead of going to my boss and telling them, hey, I have problem 1, 2, and 3, what do you want to do about it? I would say, I have these problems. These are the ways that I think we should solve these problems. And because of that, I learned a lot of respect right off the bat, and they let me run my own crews a lot earlier because of that, because they gained trust in me. So
from the other side of that, though, can you imagine a guy in the field saying that to his manager? Because the manager is going to be like, hey, I don't want to listen to what you have to say. I know what needs to be done, even if they don't know what needs to be done. So here's the problem, is not appreciating the skill sets that other people have and leaning on those skill sets. So the guy out in the field, guy or gal, is going, gals or guys, okay? I mean, if we're in this, we're going to tomboy right up with you, right? Yeah. So if we're out in the field and we know how to frame a door, that is a skill that we have that you're not going to have as a project manager. You can read the details all day long and still not tell me what order of precedence that wood is going to go up. So I need to be able to lean on you for those skills. The same thing happens with a field guy that's coming into the office and talking to the manager, and he says, hey, we've got a problem here. The project manager should know all of the parties that are going to be involved in assisting and helping with that problem. And that's something, that big picture, that the carpenter's not going to see. And so this is where I love coming into it we have 8 key foundational skill sets that transition from our life into construction. And the first is awareness. So having awareness in the moment of what's going on, and then being able to assess what you need to do in order to be able to swap out or change the direction. But the second thing is being a teacher, always. You're always 2 steps behind or 2 steps ahead of someone else. And so that opportunity to be able to teach changes the way you talk to people, and it allows you to be able to take your expertise and break them down in a way that refines your expertise in education and knowledge in that particular subject. So being able to talk to an apprentice and break it down and explain it to him instead of throwing him a hammer and saying, yeah, just watch what I'm doing. We're going to get this done today. You have to be able to explain it to them, especially with this 5 generation, this early workforce coming in. They want to be helicoptered and handheld through the whole process. Once they get it down and they can gain confidence in themselves, then they're on fire. They can go and they can get it done. But they haven't been in the garage with dad or out in the garden with mom all these years growing up, like some of us other that are a little bit longer in the tooth had an opportunity to be able to have those life experiences with our parents. Our parents are working now, both sets of parents are divorced, and families have been split up. It hasn't given children the opportunity to engage with their family the way that we would like them. And we've taken vocational education out of the school system. So there is no exploration or identification of things that you might want to do when you grow up. So being a teacher is going to be huge in teaching some of our elder or senior workers how to break things down in a way that their communication improves and they can become a mentor. And I know that old superintendent who loves telling stories about the good old days, when I was a carpenter, this is how I did it. This is how much we got done. Those are generational storytelling moments where we can learn, and they're fun to learn. It's fun to hear a story and understand what somebody had to do to get where they are today. So being a teacher and a student, and being a student. So that means being a good listener, regardless how old you are or what generation or age, you could always learn something. So being a good student is the other side of that.
Yeah, but okay, so to jump on that as well, to be a student and learning something too, right? So for me, a habit that I got into really at a really young age was every time I started a new operation or the job was going through a new operation, I would just write down. What's happening, what's the crew size, what are the expected productions, what's the equipment being used, what went wrong, what can go wrong, what do I need to look out for in the future. I have a binder in my closet. It's a big 5-inch binder, and it's packed with information. And I mean, at some day I have to scan it into my computer because this is 20 years of information that I've been recording, So
you need to write a book, Jerry.
I should write a book, right? I get messages all the time. When's your first course going to come out? I don't know. Maybe I should jump on that pretty soon. So I mean, a word of advice is especially in your first couple of years, is everything is new to you. Just write down everything that you're seeing. Now you have these network drives where you can go on your phone and you have a network drive that's a OneDrive that's connected to the cloud that you can access from your computer, and you just type in notes, type in what you're seeing every single day. Don't always blame someone for not training you, because you need to train yourself as well, especially in the world of entrepreneurship. There's nobody out to save you. I mean, I have people like yourself who help me along the way, and it goes for everybody else as well. But it's a lonely world out there, and I know I know everybody wants to find mentors, but I'm sorry, but the majority of people don't want a mentor, right?
They
You
don't
gotta,
know that they don't know that. So like I was
right.
saying, they love telling the story. They don't want to deal with somebody who's entitled or snobby or not wanting to listen to the story. But when you mentor and you provide service, it's no different than giving somebody a gift at Christmas and then feeling really good about seeing their reaction when they love the gift. When mentoring is a gift of your industry knowledge, and we're losing it. In the next 2 to 5 years, the majority of people who have direct industry knowledge are going to be retiring and leaving our industry. And this is going to be an impactful moment for construction, because I don't care how much technology you put into it. If you don't have somebody who understands how to use that technology and the order of precedence work needs to take place, you are going to be hitting some of those expensive learning lessons that you can't afford to do anymore in construction. Like, our profit margin and our risk margin is significantly impacted by our current situation.
I mean, I know in the public works, which is, mainly my background. I mean, I'm seeing these profits. They are disgusting. They are really, really down there. And you got to have a good team out in the field, because that team needs to really be able to understand scope creep and change orders. I know you had a great post about that a couple of days ago. And change orders are really, really important, but you need to be able to put together those change orders really well as well. I mean, perfect example, right? I do a lot of highway work, right? Highways requires impact trucks. An impact truck is three different pieces of equipment. It's a flat truck, it's an arrow board, and it's a crash cushion. Is your change order picking up on those three pieces of equipment? I can guarantee you 98% of the people are putting everything in as one piece of equipment, a flat truck. So you have to really understand change orders as well. There's a person that I've met here on LinkedIn as well. He's an auditor, right? Or he works for a lot of auditing companies. And he says, Jerry, change orders are the number one reason why contractors are losing so much money.
Yeah.
The gentleman that I had on last week's live event, he does a lot of statistics as well. He was talking about a lot of stats, and he said 70 to 80% of all construction projects are over budget, right? So you get, like, and this goes
and not on schedule. So
and not on schedule, right?
Yeah.
Before we go any further, if you're listening right now, and I see there's quite a few people listening, please write any questions you have in the comments, and I'll put it up on the screen for either for any of us, right? Or even just a general comment, and we'll try to address it as quickly as possible. So this kind of goes into the next topic, Cory, which is training, right? Training is so important, and I think training is picking up its momentum, right? I really do think training is picking up its momentum. You being a school teacher for so many years, you know a lot about this topic, so I'll let you run with it. What are some of the best ways that you see a contractor right now being able to train, where they're not requiring them to come in at 5 o'clock at night or at on a Saturday morning on a person's personal time? What are your thoughts?
So I would love to see this start top down and really have the company be 100% behind the investment of their employees. Some companies are afraid to invest in their employees because they don't want them going somewhere else, and they don't want to be the one who's, paying for that education bill of that person. But I think that all of us in construction recognize how small the industry is and how we end up rotating around in just a really tight circle and come right back to where we started. So the value in a company being able to be seen as a leader in how they're going to take care of their employees used to be really important, and it's coming back. It needs to be really important because this new workforce is really looking for relationships and development of a real community. So having it come from top down. But, you know, we always have this argument, hey, you don't need to go to college to get a degree. And I'm a college professor. So, of course, I'm going to tell you that you need to go to college. But I'm going to tell you for some different reasons, because I was that kid. The only reason I went to college was because it was on scholarship, and my dad had not gone to college. And that was his drive since I was in kindergarten, that I was going to go to UC Davis and be a vet. And so I didn't know there was an option to not go to college after high school. But it wasn't easy for me. And most of it was because I had a learning style that teachers did not know how to address in high school. I was a kinesiology, hands-on, give it to me, I'll put it together, take care of it. I definitely am higher in my masculine energy in that sense, you know, that the things that appealed to me were the same things that my guys, my friends, my buddies, that they were doing as well. And so first off, you know, when we leave high school, we don't really understand our learning style. And so instead of thinking, well, they just weren't teaching it the way that I can learn, we go into thinking, well, maybe I'm not built for college. Maybe I'm not smart enough for college. Well, what happened was when during the earlier generations, they went to military for 2 years, or they went and worked, you know, during the Depression. There was a level of maturity gained in those 2 years that is not happening today. And so we're actually at a much older level, 22, 25, before we hit the same maturity level as those that were in a older generation who have a longer work time, a longer work life right now, because of the fact that they started working much earlier. So for me, college was that opportunity to get outside the umbrella of your parents, be able to work and go to school and realize the responsibilities that come with that, and the impacts of your decisions in doing that. Socially gaining more friends that are around your age, or doing things that you like because you're in a specific path or industry when you're in college. So you're meeting people who are also passionate about what you're passionate about, and developing that maturity. I mean, honestly, I believe anybody can be successful without a degree. I had the best mentor ever to show me that. My dad was 17 and was one of the most successful men that I know. And so I know that it's possible. But I also know that the world has changed a lot since my dad was a kid, and that the students of today need more structure and guidance. And you can find that in college. Now, what I found in college was that the education platform was not built for the construction industry in a way that they're not going to go and read books and watch videos and then be able to learn. Like, they want to do the hands-on stuff. They want to get through it in order to be able to understand how they're learning it. But in construction management and the way the college is set up, it's difficult. They have requirements that you have to meet. And so that's why I started building this online college that I have, so that people could have a different way of being able, a different perspective of being able to go in and learn about the construction industry. And so it goes back to simplicity of what we were talking about, of generational storytelling that allows to be able to understand how a project is built from ground to top and commencement to completion, and being able to do it in a way that is interesting, it keeps you curious. Well, what's going to happen next, or what goes on after that? And so being able to develop a different opportunity for education, but it's a personal learning, a personal development learning that happens through the whole thing. You identify the skills that you're strong at, you identify the ones that you're weak at, and then you determine how much time and what's necessary for you to build where you're weak at in order to be able to pump that up into a place that can promote you into an upper management position.
And that takes experience, because I know the first gentleman who hired me when I was out of school, he says, listen, Jerry, you know, I can care less that you don't have an engineering degree. He says, I'm just happy that you went to college and you chose that route and you have something similar to construction. He says, now it's up to me to teach you to be a vice president, be sitting in my chair one day. You know, he says this business is all about experience. But I'll take that even a step further. In my opinion, there's a lot of foremen who never went to college who would be great and phenomenal supers, right? So it all comes down to experience as well. And
but having that mentor in that experience
yeah,
trip, because even a foreman might not have the confidence to step up into a superintendent position and make that transition because they're very comfortable where they're at in that foreman position, and they originally get motivated by money to step up into that superintendent role, but then they then see this whole picture of new stress that comes into it because of the other requirements that they weren't aware of. If you're aware of something before you get into it, your ability to be able to deal with it is tenfold higher than if you go into a situation blind. So the whole purpose of it, experience is very important, but knowing and accepting that you're going to have to do that when you go there is part of the opportunity to be able to have something resonate and sit with you, and you be able to learn it easier and faster.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there was I have a client, and he was showing me some of his cost records that he has, and there was one cost record. Oh, well, there was one bunch of cost records that just was missing so much information. I'm like, but there's really not much that you can get out of this to actually use for a bid. And he's like, Jared, do you know how hard it was to even just get this one cost record, right? So I think it kind of goes back to one of the points you made before, that a lot of people just become foreman and want to stay at foreman, and that's it. You know, they chose that path because they don't want to be record keeping. They don't want to be writing anything down any day. They want their shovel, and that's it. And that's great, because I love landscaping. I truly love landscaping. I have no idea why I did not get into landscaping yet. But when I'm outside and I'm doing my work, and I like to rent tools and do work around my house, I'm truly happy. Like it's such a great feeling. It's a great sense of accomplishment. Like how you said before. And there's days where I question, why did I ever get into what I got into? You know, why am I managing all these people and tracking all these costs and estimating? I was on an estimate once, $1.2 billion. You know how difficult it is to put together a $1.2 billion bid. It requires a lot of skill and a ton of meetings, because you have joint venture partners, right? So it's a tremendous amount of effort, you know. But
well, I think that one of the biggest things that we always have to keep in mind, regardless of what level or position you are in the construction industry, is that in your specific position, you always need to start with the end in mind. So if you are a foreman and you understand the importance of the collected information that you could contribute to that change order or that cost report, and you understand how important it is that you have those receipts, you will do a better job of collecting them and putting them together. But you just identified a new income stream of opportunity for someone to come up with an easy way for that guy to be able to document what's going on in his day, so that that can be used in a cost auditing or a cost scenario in that sense. But always going with the end in mind gives you an appreciation for what the next person's job is, because your job is to help and serve other people. So if we're helping and serving, and we're doing our job as a foreman and collecting those receipts and then handing those to the superintendent so he can put his package together, then we're going to be appreciated for that, and it's going to feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say again, all that are listening right now, if you have any questions, please put it in the comments, and we'll be more than glad to answer any questions. But the time is running away on us. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening so fast. So I wanted to get into one of the other major topics that I had was employee retention, right? You know, I read an article. They said that the top reasons of people leaving is lack of training, which we talked about a little bit, poor communication, pay and benefits, which I think is a big excuse for a lot of employers, because it's not always about pay and benefits. All right, I made a move once and I took a pay cut, so I know that firsthand. unclear job descriptions,
Mm-hmm.
inadequate staffing levels, right? Because if you're always asking for help, which I know I always was, and I never got it, it increases your stress levels, right? Because your mind just can never stop thinking, especially when
No,
you're
but
doing
you still do it. You still complete that work, and it's
it.
not
Right,
even part of your stuff to do.
right, right. And then just to finish the last two is lack of recognition, which is very
Mhm.
important, right? Because you want to feel like you're a part of an organization, you're being recognized for your efforts, and I'll go into this a little bit later, and inability to provide feedback, right? So, you know, let me start this off like this. So I've worked for small companies and I worked for large companies. It's a completely different atmosphere, right? When you're working for a small company, you're wearing many hats every single day. You're dealing with the owner directly every single day. There's only a couple of managers and you're dealing with them every day. Everybody knows exactly who you are and what you're doing. There is no talking behind people's back, because when you're talking behind people's back, it will get to them within hours, not even days, and within hours. These large companies, they're great because you see big work, and there's a lot of, and there's, I guess you could say, more opportunity, but there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of backstabbing, and there's a lot of that gossip that goes along with that. So, what can you add? I just mentioned a whole bunch of employee retention issues that are the main topics. What can you add to that, Corey?
Well, I totally agree that people need to be happy at work. I mean, we work a big majority of our life. So if we're going to be spending that much time doing something, we need to be enjoying it. So one of the things that we're able to do is identify where your personal innate skill sets lie. So what is it that you are really good at that might be able to align with a task or something that you do in construction? If I'm really good at negotiating and I love the research that goes into putting a change order negotiation together, where I go through the drawings and I look at the details and I identify where the mistakes were made or where things are going, and that feeds me and that gives me energy. And then you ask me to go and do a field report, which, let's just pretend that I hate doing that. Like, so then I have to go out on the job site and, deal with all these smart asses not wanting to give me information on their manpower or what have you. Then I come back to the office and I'm like, okay, but that's okay. I can go back and I can work on this thing that I'm really good at and I know that I'm going to do. So understanding where people's skills are, what feeds them, what gives them energy and helps them get up in the morning is going to be important in them also doing the other things that have to be done, but that they don't like to do. And so really the community and enjoying your job is really important. One of the things that I work on, I provide a program called Mastermind Mentor Membership. And what it is basically is a train the trainer that helps those who are getting ready to go into retirement, who might be interested in being a mentor, but being paid for it. So having a company actually bring back their industry knowledge workers to come in and mentor and kind of hold the hand of some of those people that are coming up into the workforce. I believe that this is going to be huge, not only in helping them with the experience, but also helping them with the attitude and having a friend or a buddy or somebody's experience to lean on, to give them confidence to be able to go through the day. The problem with this sometimes is that a lot of companies are able to hide expenses of what mistakes young people make in their training in a change order that goes back to the owner. So the incentive in making sure that their people are trained right needs to be really high so that they can retain these people, have a good training program in place that allows them to be able to see where their pipeline's going to go so that they can do that. But definitely a good community. I mean, everybody's always wanting to get paid more, but like you said, I've quit jobs, I've fired people, I have released information or released jobs that I didn't get as much pay. One other thing, I remember my first employee evaluation that I did as a facility director, and when I did it, my thought was that I wanted to help them improve, like legitimately help them improve. And I carefully wrote that so it wouldn't hurt anyone's feelings, and that, you know, they could take it and use it as an opportunity to see where they needed to have their growth. I offered training for them to be able to excel in those areas. It still didn't work. I mean, literally, people don't want to hear it. They don't want, you know, you say that they don't have evaluation or review of their services and what they could do to improve. But I mean, this careful communication that we have right now in construction, we're used to having a thick skin and somebody just saying, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Why did you do that?" You know.
Mm.
And so being able to have that communication and relationships, you can't have a hard discussion with someone if you don't have a relationship with them, because it will not be taken the way that you want it to be taken.
Right, but you know, it's very difficult for an employer to make everybody happy as well, right? So if you're
Yes,
working for a
absolutely.
medium-sized company and you have 100 people and 100 people giving you all their wants and needs,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much you can give. And I said in the beginning of this live event that, you know, the business is so competitive right now. So how much more overhead can you add to your business? And people need to understand that, you know, you're making the choice to go work for that company. You understand what your benefits were. You understand where the pay is, because reputation travels really fast. All it takes is a
Mhm.
couple of phone calls and you'll know exactly anything you need to know about that particular company. It really isn't hard, especially here on LinkedIn, right? It's so easy to
Yeah.
find somebody working for a company. So if you are an employee and you're looking to make a move, do your research on that company. And
Yeah.
then when you get in there, if the benefits aren't working in your favor, I mean, figure it out. You
Yeah.
had the opportunity, you had the time. Unless you're starving and you've been unemployed for a long time and you really need to get a job, it is what it is at that point, right?
And it's always easier to get a job when you have a job, number one.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like to do is have a cheat sheet. So for all of my employees, I have a rundown of a cheat sheet that tells me who their family is, how many kids they have, what their hobbies are, what they like to do. And it allows me to quickly be able to have a starter conversation with them that immediately is going to resonate with them, to be able to build those relationships. And it shows that you care. And so just being able to have that communication with your employees is really important.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, and again, it goes back to that whole onboarding process. You know, I mean, small
Mhm.
companies don't do any onboarding. They'll give you an hour interview. You know, I had an interview once where I was asked, you know, hey, listen, Jerry, in this particular situation, how would you estimate this type of particular situation? And I gave my answer, and he was like, well, I know that you know how to estimate now. Does anybody do that in their companies? Does anybody put somebody on the spot like that and say, "Hey, I have a simple wall. It's X amount of cubic yards. I have reinforcing. It's a double-sided wall. This is the surrounding situation. How would you handle this situation in the bid?" It comes down to a couple questions like that. Or on the flip side, you could do that for a project manager or a super or a field engineer or an office engineer, right? You know.
And that's why I encourage companies to really look at their internal training program, because even small and mid-sized companies can sign up with a company like mine where they can have construction education for their employees, but then build an intern apprenticeship opportunity within their own company. And that gives them an opportunity to interview, a long interview with the different employees. So you can have somebody that you're teaching and training for a 2-month period that is under the wing of one of your more experienced people, or bringing in one of these mentors that's working part-time and not taking up on your benefits, and having that mentor kind of guide that intern or that apprenticeship. You're building your own pipeline, and you're developing people who understand the culture of your company and understand that you want to invest in your employees. And then you're not committed by any kind of, you know, potential firing issue if you let go of them at the end of the program. So you have a 2-month program, 6-month program, but it also benefits those high school students that are, close to your area that don't get vocational education and may just want an opportunity to explore the construction industry. It allows you to be able to give back to your community, but it helps you build opportunity for your company.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even smaller companies, I know a lot of owners are like, I just don't have time for all this stuff. But outsource it, outsource it. Have somebody to help you with the onboarding. I can do that. You can do that, right? Have somebody help you with systems and processes and interview with an unbiased opinion who deals with a lot of construction companies and knows what's working and knows what's not working. Interview your own people and find out all the different things that are going wrong on a consistent basis and all the things that are going right, and put together a package of how to train the next generation and the new hire and your existing hirees, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely. I won't be onboarding anyone. I'm strictly into
I can
behavior comprehension and soft skill development in the construction industry. And we talk about technical construction topics, but definitely what you're talking about, it's not just an onboarding of looking at someone's resume and doing an interview. It's helping them know and understand the mindset, the culture, community of that particular company, so that they can be just as excited about going to work for that company as that company is in hiring them. So really, really important to get a good foot out and a good start.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you got to really enjoy your career. I mean, for me, my first 10 years were the most, they were euphoric. I couldn't wait to go to work on Monday morning. And then things start to change, right? Stress starts to hit you, and you start having kids, and life takes over, right? So, but you got to stay curious, and you got to understand all the different avenues that you can go down to. So Cory, we're coming to the end of this live event. It went by so fast. Any last thoughts you wanna throw out there? How people can find you as well?
Well, again, thank you so much for having me here. It was a great conversation. Anytime anybody wants to talk anything about education or training, I would love to be able to be there to help them. You can reach me on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, Construction Management Online. Tuesdays, we have the Tuesday tailgate talks at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then Wednesdays, we have Industry Partner Series, where we have different people from different sides of the industry all come in and give different perspectives of how they work in the construction industry and how they got to where they are. And then I did mention earlier just the Mastermind Mentor membership, which is an opportunity for some of the senior or those who want to be in a mentorship position, learning, train the trainer, how to actually take your industry knowledge and break it down into a package that is chewable for some of the younger generation. So thank you so much for having me here. Great topic, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome, and thanks for being a part of this. So everybody out there, I have another live event next Friday with AJ Patel. We're going to talk about data and systems and how to get yourself organized. So Cory, thanks again. Thanks again for being a part of this, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.